Good afternoon, everyone. Today we have with us Professor J. Moorthy, Director of Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Thiruvananthapuram. Welcome, sir, and thank you for coming on the show. Thank you. What is the focus of IISER with respect to the work done in the last few years, and what are the plans for 2023 and moving beyond?
Okay, let me give you a little sort of a background information about IISERs in general. There are 7 IISERs in the country, right? The first one was started in 2006, and by 2008 we had 2 institutions come into the picture. These are basically 4th and 5th, one at Bhopal and the present institution here at IISER Thiruvananthapuram. It was established in 2008, and subsequently we have had 2 more, one coming up at Berhampur and the last one at Tirupati. Okay, so every institution functions in its own way. There's nothing like a common thread. Otherwise, there's a framework that every institution is typically follows. The major emphasis here is for all IISERs is basically to impart education with research integrated. The education in IISERs is a way different from the kind of education that you get in sciences in the university system. Why it is so different? And you could ask me this question. Like, for example, somebody who's admitted for bachelor's degree, seldom they get to sort of engage in research problems. But in IISERs, they have this beautiful opportunity. While they basically take the courses, they get plugged into laboratory system, research environment. So they get to go to the research laboratories and work with the research scholars and expose themselves. So in other words, the education is kind of integrated with research exposure, right? So our institution was founded in 2008, but was operating in Trivandrum city, what is called as a city engineering college. But we did have the campus, but campus they could not come into the campus could not be constructed in time. There were initial problems. The campus construction got completed only about 3 years before, right? It is a long drawn process. I don't want to delve into the details. So all operations from the city got moved here, so which meant that they could not academically expand. So for well over about 10 years, the institution had 4 disciplines, namely physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. The kind of programs that the institution had were like 5-year integrated BSMS degree, which is basically the main focus in all IISERs. And then PhD program that runs for 5 years in all the disciplines. And we also had what is called as the integrated PhD for students that complete bachelor's degree and then join, right? They join for master's and then continue for PhD, spanning a period of about 7 years. So these were the 3 programs that were existing, and we had only 4 disciplines. And you could ask me, other institutions that are well ahead, a bit ahead of our institution, what did they have, by the same time? So they could expand academically by, for example, if you look at IISER Bhopal, they have even computer sciences, right? Environmental or atmospheric sciences, the humanities. So they could expand beyond these 4 disciplines, namely physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. That did not unfortunately happen in Trivandrum. So our campus, basically all operations moved into the campus in a place called, near Vithura. So ours is a beautiful campus set up on a kind of 210 acres land. It's today, if you enter into the campus, this is one of the best campuses, beautiful campuses, picturesque campuses in the country, I must say. So we are well set up now. I took office as a director in 2019. So I have been looking at basically academic expansion. So right in 2020, you asked me this question in the last 2-3 years, what is it that this institution has done? So we came up with, I come from IIT Kanpur. So this has been my dream. In fact, the NEP came into picture in 2020. I initiated what is called as an integrated kind of a science discourse, and launched this program by July in 2020, what we call as integrated and interdisciplinary sciences in the name of I-Square Sciences. So NEP came much later, I would say, by September, October. So our institution is already aligned from that point of view. So this meant we had to work a lot to develop a curriculum that is very different from the kind of a structure that you have for BSMS programs, right? It allows students to be rooted in a particular discipline and at the same time explore a bit of something else that a student really kind of has passion for. For example, a chemistry student could opt for a few courses in biology. A physics student who is working on materials could opt for a few courses in chemistry and equip himself or herself at the same time while being a physicist and pick up the nuances of chemistry. This is truly interdisciplinary. And no other institution has this, what is called as the acquired sciences. And you could ask me, is it there anywhere? Of course, if you go abroad, I mean, in the West, you do have, but under different basically kind of names. So there is a name that we coined ourselves to mean integrated. In a sense, it basically provides the well-rounded, a comprehensive curriculum that one would otherwise get for this degree. At the same time, you also have interdisciplinary courses that are sort of built into the structure. So this is what we launched in 2020. We started a new discipline called data sciences, and I'm sure every one of you know by now how important it has become. And in fact, we started admitting the students from 2021 for a 5-year BSMS data sciences program. This data science program is again different from the kind of data science kind of courses that you otherwise learn elsewhere. They're basically for 2 years and oriented more towards basically for industrial and such applications. But here, the students that join for data sciences, first 2 years, they learn pretty much everything about physics, chemistry, mathematics, and biology. And as they go along, by the time they complete 5 years, the data sciences are more for applying for sciences. This is where the data sciences in Thiruvananthapuram is different. That was in 2020, and the 2021 come to 2021 because we needed to expand the academically. And unfortunately, we do not have too many faculty, but now we have started adding the faculty. And within with the available kind of a strength in the faculty, we initiated for the first time in IISER 2-year master's programs in chemistry, physics, mathematics, and biology. It's a very, very different from the masters that the students get elsewhere. It's a completely well-curated structure on par with the kind of education that anybody receives in the West or advanced countries. So in fact, this batch should be, 2021 we started. Next year, I think the first batch will be graduating. And come to 2020, while at the same time, on campus, if you come to our campus, you will see there are 2 new centers that we have created, by spending about 9 crores on a HPC, high performance computing facility. For all kinds of computational kind of a research, we have a HPC center, right? And we created another center called as a Center for Advanced Materials Research with the international cooperation, what we call as an engagement. In fact, we call this as a Camry, which has been sort of brought into picture with a considerable amount of expenditure. So here, the faculty basically who have collaboration outside can basically take the PhD students with some kind of MOUs, and the students get to be guided by a faculty of the campus and a scientist from abroad at the same time. And built into it is the possibility for the student to go for a year or more abroad and spend some time there, get exposed, and come back, and then multiple visits. Complete the research and get the degree. This is the Camry and HPC. And 2022, 23. In fact, we submitted a proposal to the ministry, which is under serious consideration, to sort of bring into picture a new discipline in the name of earth sciences, earth, environmental, and sustainability sciences. Of course, climate change and everything that you talk about is so very important, but then at the same time, everyone is immensely concerned in the present day with sustainability. We have a finite resources which are fast getting depleted. We have to worry about conservation everywhere. So sustainability, UN, United Nations also has the sustainability goals. And how do you bring those basically kind of themes into education and practice? So this new discipline is under serious consideration. It's a matter of a month or two that we'll be opening up this particular course. So as we go along, you asked me like, what are the plans down the line? We have brought some new programs into picture. We have to sort of maneuver this into successfully kind of seeing them through, like I-Square Sciences that we have launched with a lot of enthusiasm. We would like to see that our graduates are positioned and they emerge as basically the kind of products that we would like to see, because it's the interdisciplinarity built into them. And where are these guys going to sort of end up? It's a time-tested process, right? We have to maneuver the structure that we have built. And the master's program that we have created for the first time in IISER, we want to showcase to the country that our education is really, really of the state of the art. And our graduates are going to be sort of around the world. We want to demonstrate that. So we would like to focus on ensuring that the programs that we have launched become really successful.
Thank you. My next question is about, when it comes to research, what is the promise that the education ecosystem of the country holds?
When it comes to research, when you speak of research, okay, I think I'm a scientist, I'm a practicing scientist. I can tell you what the present scenario is. So research cannot be done at in a kind of a primary school or a simple higher secondary education system that we have. It's basically a higher education system. So let me limit myself to how the research in higher education system holds for the country. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at our country, the research in higher education systems, institutions, I must say is pretty good, particularly in institutions of national importance. In the last 15 to 20 years, the research infrastructure has gotten tremendously great. There's been considerable, flow of funds to these institutions, and the kind of the scientists that are hired in these institutions are on par with the international ones that you get to see abroad. So from that point of view, the quality science has begun to emerge from India, I must say, and it's globally very visible, and it's getting increasingly visible. But unfortunately, this is limited to the institutions of national importance or the laboratories that are set up centrally, like for example, CSR organizations, DAE organizations, DBT institutions. And if you speak of technical education institutions, we have 23 of IITs, 7 IISERs. There's a large number of central institutions, central universities, pretty much in every state. In these institutions, the infrastructure is good, but unfortunately, a larger chunk, sort of gets confined to the university system which are run by states. And the universities also have these affiliate colleges. So traditionally, if you look at the education and research, the universities are basically the strongholds. But unfortunately, in our country, that scenario is different. Slowly, there is an erosion in terms of the practice of, the practice of science, practice of research in the university system is slowly on the decline. And why it is so, I think it's sort of linked to a lot of issues that I would not like to address. But the fact it is, right? There's a funding situation, funding issue, the hiring of the quality of the faculty kind of hired in the universities, a variety of factors. And if you go to the affiliate colleges, which are run by private organizations, the private institutions don't have the kind of research culture or the kind of expenditure that that one would invest in carrying out some kind of research. You don't see that. As a result, I would not say that the kind of research is really great in university system. There are a few well-known universities, for example, Central University at Hyderabad is pretty good. But then state level universities, how many can you count in the country as being really equally good?
If
And
I
which
may
is where,
also ask, if I may also ask, Atal Innovation Centers have been set up at many of the institutes. Uh, what would you say about those Atal Innovation Centers, and to what extent do they foster innovation and research efforts
since when have they come into picture? It's a
in the
very
last
recent.
few years?
It's very too early to ask, like, what is really coming out of it. I think we have to wait for some more time. There's a considerable amount of basically funding spent on it. For example, it is there even in the schools, right? The adult tinkering laboratories, ATLs, right? And I'm sure you're going to ask me like how the secondary education system is,
We
primary
will
education
consider
system.
it, yes.
Yeah. Like you also have these are things that have come into picture very recently. I mean, to see a real outcome from these organizations, it takes a while. I think we have to wait and see. Are they really serving the purpose that is intended? It's a matter of time. I think it's too early to sort of answer this.
While you have partially answered my question, if you may elaborate on which are the fields that show which hold promise for future and where a lot of work is being done.
We can talk about every discipline. For example, let's say in general, where is the focus? Right? We can worry about the major issues that the humankind is fraught with in general, right? For example, there is a war going on in Ukraine, and the kind of crisis that they're going through, we all know, with the power cutoff, right? Energy is a huge thing, right? We're completely relying on more than 70% basically is from non-renewable resources. We are pumping out the crude petroleum oil and burning, and natural gas is getting exhausted, and coal is being sort of burnt. Right? These are finite resources. They are fast getting depleted, and we all have to worry about how the future is going to be with all these reserves are, once they're exhausted. How is the future going to be? The energy is a huge thing. So which is where energy is a big thing, right? One wants to sort of utilize the solar energy, wind power, hydro electric energy, right? Can we really come up with the materials that we have around in a manner that we dispense with the mechanism of basically sort of burning the crude petroleum oil, which also contributes to climate change enormously because we burn. Now there's so much of emission. The CO2 is something that is hazardous that we perceive. Can we really transform that CO2 into an energy itself? So can we convert CO2 into some kind of a useful fuel? Right? If you can reduce it, you can get to basically kind of a methanol, and you can further do some chemical transformation, you get methane, which is a fantastic fuel by itself. Now, can we sort of rely on water, split up the water into oxygen and hydrogen and separate the hydrogen and generate hydrogen as a fantastic fuel and have fuel cells which become alternatives to the energy. Alternative energy is a big thing. It's going to be an incessant problem, right? Because we want to completely rely on renewable resources. Right? The second, when it comes to kind of a digital age that we are going through, right? Sophistication is a way of our life. Sometime back, when I began as a PhD scholar in IISER Bangalore, we only had a computer that was not even 256 MB. PCXT is what we would call in 1988, 1990. And today, a small kid has in here his or her hand about a 128 GB just phone that you can buy for about 10,000 rupees, right? And still people are not happy. The resolution one wants, click a picture, you want to have a better resolution, you want to see a person with high clarity, and which is where we are going through absolutely a digital age. Resolution matters a lot, bandwidth matters a lot, and which is where the quantum technologies are coming in a big way to revolutionize the way that we live, bring AI, artificial intelligence, into our living in every way possible, be it just basically sort of survival within the house, or you get out and you want to sort of sit in a car, somebody to take you without the help of anybody to drive you. AI is becoming a way. So, which is where I think the quantum technologies are going to sort of change the way that we live. And when it comes to our own sustenance in the field of biology, if you worry about, we have been basically kind of, we have just gone through this terrible thing, a wretched thing of this COVID. We have to worry about basically the infectious diseases. How does humankind basically counter them? Virology, right? Antibiotic resistance that we develop. These are the scientific problems, right? I can keep talking about basically.
If I may also ask, at the institute, because food security is one of the key concerned areas now. So,
Mhm.
is work being done in that area and using biotechnology? Is that being done at the moment or
No,
planned
we
for
don't
that?
focus on. No, we don't have a discipline in that. No,
Okay.
at IISER, no, we don't have basically food science. No. So
Okay.
we have basically, ecology, which is what I talked about. Earth, environmental, and sustainability. This comes under that, a bit of it. But there are institutions like, I'm sure you would have heard about the CFTRI, Central Food and Technological Research Institute, the one
Yes.
in Mysore, worries about this, like
Okay.
food conservation and what is it that we worry about. Of course, it also comes under agriculture, the produce.
Okay.
No, we don't have that.
My next question is about global rankings. And within the global rankings, there's immense emphasis on research and on impact and citations. So, what are your views on that? And also, how can Indian institutes align to that those parameters? And how can and on the other hand, how can benefits of research be translated for local good and for good of the country? So, couple of questions
Yeah,
in that.
very extended question. Let me go one after the other. Right, the global ranking. Everybody would like to know. We also have in our country, for example, a number of institutions, and now I think our own government of Ministry of Education did come up with a framework to sort of put on scale which institution is really better and which isn't. Any parameter that you come up, any kind of basic analysis that you come up with to sort of rank the organizations on a scale is subject to some kind of this way that way, some controversy. There's no question, right? No system that you come up with can be really a foolproof. But with whatever parameters that are stipulated, I think they are in a way guide to sort of looking at which institution is doing well and which institution is ranked where. A few places this way, that way, depending on the parameters that you have, but more or less they are indicators of the strengths of an organization. Research is going on. Research is a global thing, right? And one would like to know where good quality science is happening. How would one know, right? If you have to rely on basically the quality of education cannot become a way. It can only become a bit to the overall assessment, but cannot become a dominating contributor. So from that point of view, research undoubtedly certainly merits as a major parameter to gauge across the world which institutions are doing good and which aren't doing good. So we have to believe that. So the kind of science that is being done, or technology that is being produced, developed, is good or bad, naturally has to be measured based on something that is available in the public forum. The publications are a means. So publications are, kind of reflect the quality of science that is pursued in an institution or a university. So from that point of view, the global rankings have to be taken seriously. You cannot dispense with. The institutions survive based on global ranking now. It has become a race, right? So publications really reflect. So publications alone don't do enough, because you may have published, but nobody looks at what you have published, which means has no taker, right? So some earth-shattering work naturally will be sort of looked at by Many, and which is where the citations come into picture. So a publication with a large number of citations generally is perceived to be good work, should be perceived to be good work, right? But this is again a disciplines dependent, but that is more of a detail. But publications do matter a lot for recognition of a particular institution or university in the global ranking system. And to what extent our country is aligned with respect to that? Of course, we are aligned. It has become a global feature. Now, there is something called as a QR ranking system, QS ranking system, sorry. And there's also THE Times ranking system as well. And our institutions do participate, but you need to have certain kind of criteria met. Some of the leading institutions like Indian Institute of the premier institution of India, it does feature in about globally in the ranking somewhere between 200 to 300, and some IITs do feature. So every institution, we also would like to, but ours is a new institution. It takes a while to be globally known, but in years to come, definitely we will rank up. All IISERs will rank up. And within the Indian system, we have something called as a NIRF ranking system, right? And which places the available institutions in the country with certain threshold values in terms of the students and investment and things like that. And we do have, and NIRF ranking also matters, and where the institutions feature.
Thank you so much. And now my colleague Vasudha would like to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Professor Moorthy. Now, of course, we have to talk a little bit about, the new national education policy. Over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of debate, a lot of discussions about it. But it seems like in the coming year, a lot of institutes are embracing the policy, and a lot of them have committed to, even like full-on implementation of it. So that being said, how do you think that the NEP will kind of help encourage this research ecosystem, especially when they're also giving so much emphasis on multidisciplinary work, which you have also emphasized as an important part of research?
It's very good, actually. I would say, I think the central themes of NEP, if you look at, one is so much emphasis on interdisciplinary, or you want to call it as a multidisciplinary science. And the second is the flexibility in the education, right? The students can basically exit and come back. And while studying, the curriculum is such that they can basically sort of take any courses that they want. It's all about amassing some kind of a credits, academic, banking credit system. So given that there is a flexibility, as one is not really constrained to basically sort of learn whether somebody likes it or not, whether you like it or not, there is a flexibility that is built in the system. And as a result, this kind of a multidisciplinary exposure makes a graduate really not a narrow-minded specialist. The graduates basically emerge with some kind of a core strength, but at the same time with exposure to other disciplines. I think this is exactly what I was talking about. If you talk about basically chemistry, physics, mathematics, or biology, and if you look at subject alone, and if you dig deep into it, the areas are basically saturated. The excitements are in the interdisciplinary areas. For example, if you talk about biology and physics, biophysics, chemistry and biology, chemical biology, this kind of basically where the activity that demands expertise in more than two different areas is where a lot of excitement is. So from that point of view, the graduates that emerge are well-rounded for taking up basically the challenges of today.
Absolutely. And, even before we get into graduation and graduate students, in schools right now, STEM education has gained so much more momentum. Even STEAM is being talked about, not just STEM. How do you think STEM education is in school at school level right now? And what skills are they helping students develop, like to have that aptitude to do research when they go into further studies?
The school education, in some states, it's okay. For example, if you come to Kerala, that where our Thiruvananthapuram is, I think, the school education is pretty good. But I don't want to sort of single out some states for the school education. Unfortunately, it is completely book-based. I don't think that we have evolved into the level that we would like to see. The children are basically learning everything that is available, mugging up virtually. But the hands-on experience is completely lacking. And which is where the education in our country is way different from the kind of education that you witness in the West. Here's too much emphasis on too much material covered in the classes. But there, it's not basically the material, but how much you uncover in the minds of the children is what matters there. Their focus is altogether different, right? And the hands-on experience is where basically the school education system basically suffers from in our country. So how do we help? I think the children have to be exposed. And I think which is where maybe the visits to the higher education institutions where the research is being sort of, carried out, or visits to the industries where they get to see the what they learn is applied and create some kind of inquisitiveness in the minds of the students and sort of, seed the thought process into the minds. So what they study, they have to kind of see where the application is. That's when the education can become more and more exciting. Unfortunately, that is missing. In some states, it's okay. I think now we have, earlier we were talking about, the kind of, Atal research centers and things like that. We also have now Atal, laboratories, right? Atal, sorry? Atal Tinkering Labs, ATLs. Sorry, ATLs. They're called as basically Atal Tinkering Labs, where the children basically can get there and sort of, play around and enjoy what they have learned truly with their own hands. This kind of basically visits and stuff like that, basically, sort of exposure can help basically the school system. And I think this has to come in a big way.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's limited to the books, and the book learning doesn't help. And another contributor which is very detrimental is that the admissions in higher education depend on how a student has been, right? For example, I know of several cases, the parents basically sort of driving the children nuts for admission for IITs from the age of 13, 14, when they are in 8th standard, 9th standard. The target becomes basically IIT and such institutions. And if it's all about scoring marks, then where is the question of basically kind of innovation or inquisitiveness in the minds of the children? So that's how it is. We have a lot of competitive examinations. So it's more of basically the education is oriented towards cracking the competitive examinations to ensure some kind of decent admissions to decent institutions. That is the focus, which basically hijacks any possibility for innovation in the young minds. How do you get over this? It's not easy, because we have a large population, the limited number of higher education. The competition is stiff, so the parental pressure really kind of plays havoc on the minds of the children, right? I think it's only a time is in essence, and slowly I think the thinking process has to change.
Absolutely. Trying to get that skill into the students, and also to be able to show the skill that they have given the student, which is important. And I imagine there's so much creativity also involved in research work, and that kind of gets stifled in this kind of a situation. But I can see that already a lot of work is being done, and one step by step we're going to make sure that we can get to that point where kind of students can get what they want, parents can be happy, and education and research can also move forward. This being said, you've spoken about a lot of things, from students to institutes. You talked about sustainability and conservation earlier on. Can you tell me a little bit more about other good practices that research and institutes that need to adapt?
Good practices that the institutions have to adapt. Can you elaborate a bit what exactly you are looking at?
It can be on ethical grounds. We need to make sure that all the studies that are being done are ethically correct, or that we're gathering data in the right way, that we're making sure that whatever data we are producing is showing the correct results, or correct, or maybe more representative of the work that is being done.
I think one of the, maybe I can talk about this. One of the serious problems that the world is faced with is plagiarism. Seriously, In fact, the children, right? I mean, you ask the children to basically write an essay. The next thing that they do is Google whatever the topic that you have given, lift the material from the web, and then sort of stitch it up. And it also masks, prevents any creativity to be seen from the children. It hijacks the whole process, right? I think the current generation is getting kind of hooked to this, right? It comes from very early age, but when it comes to a research setup and replicating anything that is already there verbatim becomes a crime. It is a very bad practice. But most of the time, the students do not even realize that they have taken some material from somewhere, and that is not a good practice. They are not aware, and which is where some kind of the training to the students from the inception, from the beginning, when they take up the research. I think many institutions do this as part of basically some kind of a coursework as to what is right and what is wrong. Ethics, there are courses on ethics, right? And the students are taught to what extent basically constitutes acceptable, to what extent is not acceptable, right? The plagiarism, for example, a scientific matter that what you have done, you would like to sort of report, but then you want to provide a kind of a background. In doing so, from what is reported, you lift basically the sentences and sort of put it up, and you don't sort of reorganize. That becomes a plagiarism, right? And these are basically some higher education institutions emphasize on this, and there are courses on this that are offered basically to sort of ensure that the students learn the ethos of what is right and what is wrong.
Absolutely. The consequences are not really understood by students. And I think, as you kind of hinted at, a lot of times people don't actually think they're doing anything wrong when they're looking at it. Yeah. And that is a bigger problem, because if you don't know that you're doing something wrong, then how can you stop it from happening?
That is one. I think the gender sensitivity, harassment at workplaces have gone absolutely unnoticed in the past, but these have, which is good actually, I must say, have become very significant in the present day. I think a good institutions basically sort of make the practitioners or the incumbents realize where the line is, and work culture as to how you have to be in terms of your conduct, right? And these are the practices some of the good institutions basically sort of practice, and the respect for the gender neutrality, of course, and creating an ambience where the working by the other sex also is basically encouraged, right? These are all good practices, and the institutions that promote are the ones that are sensitive, and in the current day it calls for that sensitivity. Every institution has to embrace these things.
And I suppose the validity of the study also kind of depends on this, right? And you can't have someone afterwards coming and saying that these practices were not followed. It undermines the work that has been done. We are coming towards the end of 2022. For 2023 or even the coming years, what would you like to see happen in the space of research? It can be in terms of, maybe better infrastructure, or like you said, these good practices being, implemented better. Would you like to see more investment coming into this area? Would you like to see better practices in schools throughout India? What would you like to see?
Let me limit myself. For example, I mentioned this is a digital age, right? It's very easy to be distracted. Science is very demanding. So we are talking about research, right? The students that embrace research is when they have completed basically the master's program. They are at the age of 22, 23. Right. If you look at the same age, somebody who basically took up some kind of the technical education or engineering education, became a software engineer, would be around 21, 22. He or she would be a student, a graduate, would be earning money. But when you come to research, there is no such opportunity. You'll only be getting a fellowship, right? And PhD means another 5 years to 6 years. In fact, the average time in India is about 5.5 to 6 years. That means you are looking at an age of about 28. So this digital technology is something that the students get hooked to, lose sense of their valuable time, which is a huge diversion. but fellowship gets cut off at the end of 5 years. I think the younger generation has to be taught the importance of time. I would like to see in my institution, right, which applies if you ask me what is your vision for everybody. I think those that come to research should come only if they have a passion for doing research. If you don't have passion, no, don't come for sort of getting some petty money in the form of fellowship. That kills basically. The expectations are huge. So when you come for passion, that means you're inquisitive about something. You contribute effectively to a given problem, and which is where the institutions go up. Maybe you strike gold somewhere and sort of hit something that is really big. The country or the institution, the country as a whole can be proud of by your whatever innovation that you find. Right, but those that come only for killing time can basically have the other effect, completely kill the culture, work culture as a whole. I think the students have to, I would like to see in my institution the students are serious enough that come for research, basically embrace their subject with passion and are conscious of the duration that they must really complete, and at the end of 5 years get out gloriously with competence that is reflected in terms of quality publications that will help them, and that will help the institution also to be seen in terms of the ranking.
Absolutely. Now,
I think this research community has to be conscious of the time. Research community has to be conscious of basically the demands, and only those with passion are the ones should embrace the research, not everybody. Right?
Yeah. My final question to you is also something that maybe you could say directly to students or to our readers and listeners and viewers here. What is your advice to people who are looking for a career in research or who are pursuing research? Maybe they're not getting the most successful results out of it, or any life lesson you can share with us.
I think I said this already. The research is very demanding, right? Unless you are really up there and you're worried about basically every time, I mean, whatever time that is available to you, the most useful manner, it's very difficult to make really advance. Time that is lost, you cannot get back. As a researcher, you have to be very wary of that. And I believe in not only in research, in any profession, if there is an effort, there is a reward. If you are really the best, there is a beautiful opportunity. The competition is really stiff. This is what I tell the younger generation. Right? You have to sell yourself in the open market, which means you have to have the competence. And one has to question oneself to be able to attract a job tomorrow at the end of my PhD. Have I basically sort of acquired the skills that make me competent enough in the open market to be selected? What are those? I think everyone should question. Right? To become a successful scientist, it's about basically kind of putting in an effort and acquiring the skills and transforming yourself to be a competent scientist. And if you're not one, the life is not going to be easy. And it's a constant challenge. And the scientific community, those that practice science, have to sort of accept this challenge. Otherwise, life is not easy. The competition is really stiff, even to attract a job as a scientist. There are so many.
So, do you have a personal philosophy on education itself?
Personal philosophy,
yeah.
Education in general or limited to?
General. Education in general.
Education, I think in the current day, I think the philosophy is very simple, right? My philosophy is very simple. The science, if I want to be a science graduate, yeah, which is a subject that resonates with your heart. Where is your passion? Right? In fact, I tell the students, like let's talk about the BSMS students that come after 10+2, and they have joined here because, let us say, this applies to every other discipline that you talk about. They join here for a degree that spans over a period of 5 years, right? BSMS degree. They do not know when they begin whether they want to become physicists or whether they want to become mathematicians or want to become biologists or chemists or data scientists or some other discipline. First 2 years is a foundation, right? And subsequently, let us say, well, maybe I have a passion here to go into biology, or chemistry. In chemistry, again, there are a lot of things. Like, for example, there's something called physical chemistry, organic materials chemistry, bioorganic chemistry, a variety of them. So you start taking the courses. To begin with, you had an inclination for chemistry. And as you go along and you find, again, chemistry diversifies itself into so many parts. Which one do I like? Do I like something that is filled with mathematics? Or do I like something going to the laboratory where I mix some chemicals and do some reactions? Or I want to do both of them? Or maybe I want to sort of use my chemistry in biology and do some biological experiment. Where is your passion? How do you know what you like? And which is where my advice is. I tell all the students, be open-minded. You do not know yourself where your passion lies. Spend time in every laboratory, in every area. Get to know before you make a well-informed decision. So when you have been exposed to 10 different things, then you can take a call and then say, yeah, here it is what I like. But if you have not been exposed, if you have not allowed yourself an opportunity, but to take what is up there for you, tomorrow, by chance, if it turns out being what you like, yeah, is a happy ending. But if it turns out something that you don't like at all, then you'll be hating, but you will have no option because you will have sort of surpassed the age, but you will accept to live with that, but not with liking. Right? My sincere advice is, right, explore. Get to know where your passion lies. Then make a very informed decision. In any profession to come up, that is the philosophy that I believe in. You have to have passion. If you don't have passion, if you don't like what you do, then you are not going to make a progress. You're not going to be successful. To be successful, you have to have the heart. You have to have the passion. That is the philosophy that I believe in.
Thank you so much, Professor Moorthy, for sharing that with us and also coming here and giving your time to us today at BW Businessworld. We hope you have a great day and a great year even ahead of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.